Okay, Bill, the operation of the fridge.
So when we've got our fridge, we've got to understand that the way we use it can have quite a big impact on the energy it consumes. So there's a number of things there, even down to the keeping the fridge full. So if we've got the fridge full, a 300 litre fridge like this might have 100 litres of airspace, and every time we open that door like that, 100 litres of cold air leaks out of the fridge, and you could probably feel it on your feet there. So what we want to try and do is keep the fridge as full as possible, so when we open the door, all that cold air doesn't leak out. We can help the fridge also by cooling things. So if we are trying to keep our leftovers or something we've just cooked in the fridge, let it cool down first. You know, don't leave it overnight or anything like that that's dangerous, but make sure that you cool it down on the bench top and then put it in the fridge, because that means the fridge has to do less work. Other things we can do are making it easier for the fridge by putting things that we plan to thaw out in the fridge a bit earlier. So, for example, the meat we're going to have for tomorrow night, now if I put that in the fridge today, then that's acting as an ice block within the fridge, and it's actually absorbing some of the heat energy out of the fridge as well. So we've got those sorts of things that we can do to reduce the energy our fridge uses.
I remember once you were telling me the story about the tomato sauce bottle.
That's right, so understanding how your fridge works, yeah.
It's relevant.
I've got the most expensive sauce bottle in Australia, I think, in that understanding what your fridge is trying to do in it, it's blowing air around, so actually understanding that if we block the vent up the back there, where the cold air is pushed out, then the cold air doesn't flow around the fridge, and that was a $120 lesson that I had to learn about where not to put your sauce bottle. So those sorts of things, understanding what your fridge is trying to do, where the air has got to flow, keeping it at the right temperature. So, you know, if you're not sure what the temperature is, and you can see we've just opened it and it's shot up to 4.5 degrees with a bit of warm air that's gone in there. And what you can do is put a thermometer in your fridge just to make sure that it is keeping your food at the right temperature. You'll notice the different areas within the fridge have different temperatures, but the colder you run it, if you're trying to run your fridge at 1 degree, it takes more energy to run it at 1 degree than it does at 4 degrees. So you can't let it get above 4 degrees for health safety reasons, in that if you start keeping refrigerated food at more than 4 degrees, you run the risk of botulism.
Sure.
So that's botulism poisoning is very dangerous, and as soon as you get above 4 degrees in the refrigerator, the botulism bacteria can thrive, and other pathogens can thrive as well. So 4 degrees isn't just a made up number, it's something to aim for, and you need a little bit of a safety margin there.
Sure. You mentioned before about opening the doors and so forth, and of course I've got teenagers in my home, and you know, I've had to talk to them about like opening the door, just staring in there mindlessly, but that's another subject. But that is something to remember, to make sure people don't leave the doors open too soon. But I'll go on from there to say, what about the seals in terms of keeping the cold air in, the coldness in? What do we do there?
So we'll cover those 2 points. One is the use of the fridge. So if you are getting out the bits and pieces you need to cook a meal or have a snack, whatever you're doing, then think about what you're getting from the fridge, open the door, grab it and close the door. You see lots of people, they'll swing the door open and they'll go back and forth to the bench, getting 1 or 2 things out at a time. It is actually more efficient to open the door, grab what you want, even if you can't grab it all at once, close the door again and go back and do that time and time again. You should shut the door in between each item that you're getting out. And you mentioned the seals. It is important to look at the seals and run your fingers around and make sure that there's no cracks. And when you close it, you should feel a definite grab. You know, you shouldn't be able to easily pull the fridge open once it's closed. There should be that bit of a negative pressure created inside the fridge there. So if you do look around your seals, and you have to look all the way around, so get down and give them a pull, because often it's the concertina bits that are broken. If they are broken, then your cold air is leaking straight out of the refrigerator, so you're wasting all that energy.
What about the position of the fridge, Bill? I mean, in terms of if I can just picturing a draft taking away the air, we're keeping it cool at the back of the fridge.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, fridges are trying to move heat from inside to outside. Once that heat is outside, it has to be pushed away for more heat then to be pumped out. So if your fridge is locked in a cabinet and there's very little airspace around it, then your fridge is going to struggle to push that heat away. And that brings us to the second part of maintenance. So we talked about looking at fridge seals. The second part of fridge maintenance is to actually make sure that your heat exchangers and everything underneath the fridge is kept reasonably clean. So if the heat exchanger is covered in dust and fluff and whatnot, that most people only move their fridge probably once every 3 or 4 years, and that means that it makes it much harder for the fridge to push that heat energy away.
Right. Now, I can hear the hum of the compressor that you mentioned in the last section. Should I be looking at how long that part of the refrigerator is working? I mean, given that that's using the most amount of power, should there be a set time that it's running at, like a third of the time?
Well, a third to a half, depending on how warm the environment is, how much you're using the fridge. But what you've got to be careful of is just paying a bit of attention to your fridge, and every time you walk past it, it should be on every second time. So if it's on every time you walk past, it's time to either upgrade your fridge. If it's a 15-year-old refrigerator, it's probably time to upgrade. And if it's worth fixing, call someone in to have a look at it, because it's costing you unnecessary energy. And it's quite likely that if it's running all the time, it's struggling to actually keep the food at its set temperature. So that temperature requirement needs to be set to the season.
Rightio. Okay, well that's the end of that section.